Hey, what's up guys? Cameron here from Drums and Drams, and at the beginning of this video, I have to ask for your forgiveness for the clickbait title that I used. It's going to be something about whether or not this James E. Pepper barrel strength bourbon in this fancy decanter is or is not the next Blanton's killer or Blanton's alternative. And the reason that I'm using that clickbait title is, number one, I tend not to do very much of that, so give me a free pass on this one. Let's try to get a few more clicks and likes on the video. But number two, I keep hearing from people that this is an amazing bourbon, the next Blanton's killer, all those kind of things. So we're going to test it out today. Now, let me tell you what I don't like about people talking about Blanton's alternatives or Blanton's killers. Yes, it's a fun tagline. Yes, it gets you views and clicks. Of course, we're trying that out today. We'll see how that goes. But what really bothers me about it is that a lot of times you see these list videos of people giving you alternatives, and it will be something that is completely unrelated to Blanton's, not only in flavor profile, but mash bill, age, price. It can really span a lot of different things. People will offer up a Brown-Forman product like Cooper's Craft 100 or a Russell's Reserve Single Barrel at 110 proof, both of these instead of Blanton's, and those flavor profiles don't even come close to the relaxed kind of sweetness that you get from Blanton's and Buffalo Trace more broadly. So I am going to be judging at least the people that said that about this James E. Pepper in this video by whether or not this actually does resemble a Blanton's product. And to that end, you can see we have some Blanton's over here. I do have a store pick at 93 proof, but I think for the comparison at the end of this video, it's actually going to be better for us to use what's in this sample bottle, which is Blanton's Gold at 103 proof. That is going to be the best comparison to this James E. Pepper, which is at 107.6. It's not perfect, but it's a lot closer than a 93 proof Blanton's. Now let's talk about what's actually in this bottle of James E. Pepper. And frankly, we don't know that much about it. Apparently, the kind of average age of this non-age stated product is around 5.5 years old. It's a blend of different things that the James Pepper Distilling Company has. I don't know if it's their own distillate, if it's sourced, no idea. And apparently there are 4 different grains represented in here. We have corn, rye, malted barley, and malted rye. Forgive me, I'm referencing my notes so I don't get it wrong. And finally, SRP on this product is $65 or $70, which is right around that Blanton's range. And maybe because of that and because of this kind of beautiful marketing presentation here with this decanter, maybe those are some of the reasons people are relating these two products, and maybe it's the flavor profile. We will find out at the end of this video. Let's get into this now on the nose and see what we get. Last thing I need to say, this is batch 11. I've seen as high as 13 maybe at this point, and there will be somewhere down the line on a live stream or a future video a comparison between this batch and at least one other batch of this decanter series. But instead of waiting on that right now, that sample to come in, I decided let's go ahead and film this video and see what happens here. So let's check it out now on the nose and see what we get. Okay, so the first impression that I get from this whiskey, I get a lot of young notes right away, kind of like a raw wood character, young oak. Smells like you're walking into that lumber section of a hardware store. There are some light sweet notes in here as well. I would say this is, in my mind, not a whiskey that's going to have a lot of dark fruits. I'm not picking up on any like plum or dark cherry. This is really on that upper end of the spectrum. I'm thinking like peach in here. Yeah, just lighter fruits all around. It's bright, it's spicy, lively, definitely vibrant, definitely fresh, but also very young. I don't love it when I first nose this thing. I don't hate it. It kind of intrigues me. So let's go back in and see what else there is. Yeah, okay, so there are a few kind of classic bourbon notes in here. You do have a really solid, just down the middle caramel sauce, caramel drizzle kind of note. I do like that. That note works in very well with this kind of peach or apricot thing I'm talking about. In some ways, you could actually convince me that this bourbon is like a sauterne finished bourbon. And if you're unfamiliar, that's this sort of dessert wine that imparts sweet, light fruit notes, typically when you finish in sauterne barrels. I'm picking up some of those notes. Like this almost has this white grape peach thing. I grew up drinking white grape peach juice, for better or worse, you know, nowadays with everything that's in our food, but we're not going to go down that rabbit hole. But I grew up drinking white grape peach juice, and this kind of has some of those characteristics on the nose. So that's where the fruit qualities lie for me. And again, I refer to that as kind of like the upper half of the fruit spectrum or fruit pyramid or whatever you want to say. And there is something in here that's a little bit off profile, I guess, and it relates to the grains. And I know that this has malted rye in the mash bill, or at least in the blend to some degree. I'm not sure if that's where this is coming from, or maybe it's coming from a higher percentage of malted barley. We really don't know because we don't have the percentages of the grains in here. But there's something interesting and something kind of heavy. That's maybe the best way to put it. There's like a heavy grain note in here that's not quite the bright, cheap young corn thing that I'm used to. So for me, right away on this, I'm gonna stick with my first impression. It feels young. There is some promise to it. I think this distillate, whatever it is, or whatever this blend is, shows a lot of promise. And I think in a few years, if they let this stuff age, this could be really significant whiskey once you round out some of these rough edges. I also want to call out one other note, which is a distinct, for me, black pepper note in here. It's like you're at the Olive Garden and they're, doing the black pepper thing. I think they do that at Olive Garden. It's definitely not the Parmesan cheese, but wherever they put black pepper on your food and salad and stuff, I'm kind of getting that on the nose here. Let's go in for the palate now and see what we get. Cheers. Wow, that is a spicy, very spicy, very bright, sweet whiskey here. Still young on the palate. I would say there's kind of a tinge of an artificial sweetener note on this one for me. And it's adding kind of this vanilla quality to the whiskey overall. Now, I like vanilla. Typically, vanilla shows age. Typically. in older whiskeys, especially, you'll get a really nice decadent vanilla cream. This one feels a little more artificial, and I think it's because of that youth. But on the palate, first impression, super long finish. I love the punch up front. It has pretty decent development. It's kind of a one-trick pony in some ways. Like, to me, there are not tons and tons of layers to this product, but it's solid. When I first opened it, I took it to a bottle share, shared it with some friends. They loved it. I was like, this is not good. It just tastes like young oak. I would say that this has improved drastically. That could just be me and my interpretation of this, as I've had a few more pours of it in preparation for this video. Or it could be that, maybe some air is helping this thing out. No idea. But a great finish. And if you care about a long finish with your whiskey, having not only spice in the finish, but also lingering flavors as well, I think you're going to like this stuff, at least in that regard. So let's go back in now for a second sip. Oh, okay. All right, so now that my palate is ready for this, ready for the level of spice that this 107.6 proof product has, which, by the way, this drink's like 115. I think that's going to be a good thing for most people because this is a low barrel proof product. That usually means low barrel entry proof. And in that way, usually you get a lot more like dense flavors from that low entry proof. But some people want that finished product to be a higher proof. It is a good thing here that this drink's over. Second sip, I'm into a lot more of those fruit notes now. I mean, that kind of apricot thing or peach thing, then I just started talking about white grape peach juice. That is definitely here on the second sip. A little bit of a cotton candy or bubblegum note. Again, a young whiskey note. But there's something about this that I really like. I also want to point out that the color of this whiskey is very dark for a 5.5 year, on average blend. I can't believe how dark the whiskey is. To me, that means that it's really taken a lot out of the barrel, lots of barrel influence. And you can tell, I mean, the oak profile here, even though it is a younger profile, it's significant. It's in your face, very present in the whiskey. I have to imagine that this is just one symptom of that, kind of oak influence, which is heavy on this one. I'm going to go back in for the nose now because I've spent now time on the nose, on the palate. Let's see if anything's changed here on the nose now. Yeah, I would say I am actually getting a little more ethanol on the nose, interestingly, even though I am kind of acclimated to the whiskey now. But some darker notes are starting to come out. I'm actually picking up on like a carrot cake and also like a coffee cake note. There is a little bit of this bitter coffee thing in the background. I think those notes, that tinge of bitterness, plays in well with the black pepper. If you can imagine that in your mind, the spiciness of the black pepper. And, coffee has a little bit of that kind of bitter spice to it as well. Those are playing nice. And also this carrot cake thing. with kind of like a little bit of a vanilla frosting, which is, again, that slightly artificial vanilla note that I'm picking up. But there is a savory element to this as well. Like, there's a big cinnamon spice in this whiskey. Once you start drinking this on the palate, not only is there black pepper, there is cinnamon, and that cinnamon is taking me down this carrot cake route. So yes, is this a Blanton's alternative? Maybe. We're gonna find out here in just a second. But more importantly, is this a good whiskey? I think it's 65 or 70 bucks. I think it's a solid whiskey. This is not blowing me away in the way that I expected it to, given what I was hearing about it. So maybe that's all hype. Maybe it's a symptom of different batches. Again, this is 1 out of 13 batches at least that I've seen floating around. I don't know exactly what the cause is, but we're going to find out now if it really can replace this Blanton's, and in particular, this Blanton's Gold, which is at 103 proof. I do want to say also, before we continue going, if you guys want to support the channel here, Drums and Drams, the best way to do it is on the Patreon page. We have 2 different tiers, $5 and $10 tiers. Very affordable. We do giveaways every month. We're building a great community over there. And speaking of Patreon, I do have to thank 2 Patreon members for basically making this video possible. Number 1, Will M, for providing the sample of Blanton's Gold. And number 2, Devin, also Devin M, for this bottle of James E. Pepper. He donated this to the channel. Very generous. Thank you both for making this video possible. Now, let's move on to this Blanton's Gold and see if this compares to the James E. Pepper on the nose. All right, so the James E. Pepper is definitely spicier, brighter, brasher, in your face. I expected that after, the last 5 minutes of smelling and tasting this stuff. But there is a link. There is some sort of similarity between these two. I think it not only falls in the, I think it relates to the cinnamon spice, number 1, but also there's a note in the pepper that I didn't call out that this Blanton's is now making me realize that it has, and that's honey butter. There's a honey butter note in this James E. Pepper. 100% honey butter. And as we all know, Buffalo Trace products, they also have this honey note. It's a little richer, I think, a little sweeter on the Blanton's Gold. Whereas this James E. Pepper, which even just looking at them in the glass is a much darker color. This has those additional kind of black pepper spices, a little bit of that oak impact that surpasses this Blanton's Gold. So brasher, brighter, younger, more vibrant, but not necessarily a bad thing. And they are related with some of their notes on the nose. So now let's taste this Blanton's Gold and see if it compares. Yeah, there's definitely a similarity here. I'm shocked. I really am shocked. Even coming into this tasting and filming this video, I did not think that everybody's saying this is a Blanton's killer, Blanton's alternative. I didn't think they were being truthful. I thought it was all hype, all clickbait. But I think while this is not a Blanton's killer in my book, at least Blanton's Gold, Blanton's, I just don't think this is a great comparison because the proof point is so different. I don't think it's a killer. I think it's an alternative, though. It's not wildly better, but it is something that lives within the same realm. And a lot of people that complain about Blanton's being too low with its proof, being too mellow on the palate. Well, look, if you want something that's jacked up and spicier and you can't get a Blanton's Gold, this might be your next best thing. I'm sure there are other options out there, but at the price point, with the marketing and the packaging, which is also similar to the kind of, ornate, let's call it, design of Blanton's, this thing kind of does the job. And it really is, in my mind, an alternative to Blanton's. I don't think any of the whiskey on this table, Blanton's Gold included, I don't think any of this stuff blows me away. I like Blanton's for what it is. Nowadays, I tend to gravitate towards the store picks, just hopefully, in the hopes that someone with a good palate is picking this barrel, because a lot of the barrels that they're turning out nowadays are just too young. They don't taste that good. So none of these things are amazing whiskeys for me, but what I think this demonstrates, I'm going to reiterate this from earlier in the video, is that this James E. Pepper shows a lot of potential for their products. For whatever blend this is, whoever's distillate it is, as this continues to age, if they increase the age statement of this product, or if they bottle older stocks of this years down the road, maybe as a 10-year product with a slightly higher price tag, who knows? That's the stuff I'm most interested in. Either way, I think this is a great whiskey in a lot of circumstances. It's so pointed, so just in your face, that I think it's a great pour to have when you're with company, hanging around with friends. I think it's going to be a whiskey that you can put on ice, I would imagine, because of those spice notes. And Blanton's, to me, is a little more mellow and not something that I would want to have in like a crazy loud environment or anything like that. It's something kind of sitting down on the couch, relaxing. It's more of that kind of pour for me. So that's going to do it, guys. Thank you for checking out this video. Let me know what you think of this James E. Pepper, Blanton's Gold, how these things compare. Which batch of James E. Pepper have you tried, by the way? And if you've tried multiple, have you found any differences? I'm very curious about this. Hit that like button, subscribe, check out the Patreon. Cheers, and I will see you guys next time here on Drums and Drams.